There are moments in life that define us, not because of what we do, but because of what others do to us. Sometimes betrayal arrives not with thunder, but with the scratch of a pen on paper. Sometimes destruction wears a tailored suit and checks its watch while your world ends. This is the story of one such moment, and how one woman turned that betrayal into her greatest strength. The hospital hallway was quiet at 2:47 in the morning, the kind of quiet that exists only in the hours between midnight and dawn, when the living world holds its breath and waits. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting their sterile glow on white walls and polished floors. Somewhere in the distance, a monitor beeped its steady rhythm, life continuing, life measured in electronic pulses and oxygen levels. Marcus Bennett stood before a door marked Operating Room 3. Behind that door, his wife fought for her life. Behind that door, 3 premature infants struggled to take their first breaths. Behind that door, the woman who had loved him completely lay unconscious, her body stitched back together after an emergency that had nearly claimed 4 lives at once. He did not open the door. He did not ask how she was doing. He did not press his hand against the glass and wish her strength. Instead, he adjusted the cuff of his shirt. It was a gesture he had perfected over 15 years in boardrooms and conference halls. Smooth, controlled. The movement of a man who knew exactly who he was and what he wanted. The shirt was custom tailored. The suit, Armani. The watch on his wrist, a Patek Philippe that cost more than most people earned in a year. Richard Kemp, his attorney, stood beside him holding a leather folder. The kind of folder that contained documents requiring signatures. The kind of folder that changed lives with the stroke of a pen. Marcus Bennett reached for that pen now. Mont Blanc, black lacquer and gold. It had signed contracts worth millions. It had closed deals that made headlines. Tonight, it would sign away a marriage and 3 children in the time it takes to write your name. Richard opened his mouth to speak, perhaps to offer one final moment of consideration, one last chance to choose differently. But Marcus was already bending over the folder, already scanning the pages with the practiced eye of someone who read legal documents the way other people read morning newspapers. "Are you certain?" Richard asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus did not look up. "Just give me the papers." The pen moved across the page. Once, twice, 3 times. Each signature smooth and confident. Each stroke of ink severing another thread that had bound him to the woman behind that door. Husband to wife, father to children, obligation to responsibility. He checked his watch as he finished. 2:47 a.m. Exactly 7 minutes since the surgical team had informed him that his wife had survived. That the babies, though premature and dangerously small, were breathing. That against all odds, all 4 had made it through. 7 minutes between life and abandonment. "And the insurance?" Marcus asked, his tone as casual as if discussing a subscription he no longer needed. "To be canceled immediately, as you requested." "Effective when?" "I can file the paperwork within the hour. It will be processed by morning." Marcus nodded once, efficient, clean, exactly as he preferred. He straightened, smoothing his jacket with both hands. In 3 hours, he had a meeting with potential investors from Singapore. In 6 hours, he would be presenting quarterly projections to his board. Life moved forward. Business continued. The world did not stop for personal complications. He walked away from Operating Room 3 without looking back. His leather shoes echoed on the polished floor. Each step measured. Each step taking him further from the woman who had once been his wife and the 3 children he had just orphaned with his signature. Near the nurse's station, Maria Rodriguez watched him go. She was 55 years old and had worked in this hospital for 30 years. She had seen many things in those 3 decades. Miracles and tragedies, moments of profound love and stunning cruelty. But something about this man's cold departure settled into her bones like ice. She looked down at her notes. The time, the date, the fact that a man had walked away from his newborn children before they were an hour old. She wrote it all down with careful precision. She did not yet know why it mattered, but her grandmother had taught her long ago, when you see something wrong, you bear witness. You write it down. Because truth has a way of mattering, eventually. The automatic doors slid open. Marcus Bennett stepped out into the November night. The air was cold against his face, sharp and clean. Behind him, the hospital continued its work. Doctors fought to stabilize 3 infants whose lungs were not yet ready for air. Nurses monitored machines that breathed for those who could not breathe for themselves. And in a recovery room on the 4th floor, a woman began to wake up to a new reality she could not yet comprehend. Marcus did not think about any of that. He thought about the Singapore meeting, the quarterly projections, the IPO timeline they were racing to meet. He thought about Vanessa Sterling waiting for his call, about the new chapter of his life beginning now, unencumbered by the weight of family expectations and domestic complications. He climbed into the back of his Mercedes. The engine was still warm. His driver had kept it running as instructed. As the car pulled away from the hospital, Marcus allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. Clean, efficient, final. He had no idea that in 7 minutes, he had just destroyed his entire future. 18 months earlier, the world had been different. Spring in New York City meant cherry blossoms in Central Park and the kind of soft afternoon light that made even concrete and steel look beautiful. Marcus and Elena had walked along the path beside the lake, her hand in his, their future spread out before them like an open book waiting to be written. She was 31 years old then, with dark hair that caught the sunlight and eyes that seemed to see straight through to the truth of things. She worked as an architect, designing spaces that helped people feel at home. She was good at it. Not famous, but respected. Not wealthy, but comfortable. She was the kind of woman who noticed when someone looked sad and asked if they were okay. The kind who remembered birthdays and sent handwritten notes just because. Marcus had loved that about her once. Her warmth, her genuine care for others. The way she made him feel like maybe he was not just the ruthless businessman everyone else saw, but someone capable of softness too. That afternoon in Central Park, he had taken her to the Boathouse Terrace, the same place where they had their first date 3 years earlier. She did not know what was coming. She thought they were just having lunch, enjoying the weather, stealing a few hours from their busy work weeks. He had rehearsed the moment a dozen times, practiced the words, timed it perfectly so that when he dropped to one knee, the sun was behind him and the ring caught the light just so. "Elena Matthews," he had said, and his voice had been steady and sure. "You are the missing piece I did not know I needed. Will you marry me?" She had not hesitated, not even for a second. "Yes," she had said, tears already streaming down her face. "Yes, of course, yes." They were married 4 months later. Small ceremony, close friends only. Elena had wanted it simple and intimate. Marcus had agreed, though even then he was calculating how the wedding photos would look to investors and business partners. How having a wife made him seem more stable, more trustworthy, more like the kind of man you could bet millions on. The marriage had been good at first, or at least it had seemed good. Elena had filled their apartment with warmth and light. She had cooked dinners that smelled like home. She had asked about his day and actually listened to the answers. She had been patient with his long hours and frequent travel. She had believed in him completely. 6 months into the marriage, she got pregnant. They had not been trying, but they had not been preventing it either. When the test came back positive, Elena had been radiant with joy. Marcus had smiled and said all the right things, but somewhere deep inside, a small voice had whispered, "This changes everything." At the 12-week ultrasound, that whisper became a shout. The technician's face had gone from routine to surprise to carefully neutral in the span of seconds. "Is something wrong?" Elena had asked, fear creeping into her voice. "Not wrong," the doctor had said carefully. "Just unexpected. You are carrying triplets. 3 babies, 3 mouths to feed, 3 college funds, 3 lives that would depend entirely on him." Marcus had felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders like a physical thing, but he had smiled. He had kissed Elena's forehead. He had said, "That is incredible. We are going to be outnumbered." Elena had laughed, giddy with joy and shock and the overwhelming magnitude of it all. 3 babies, Marcus. Can you believe it? He had said yes. He had meant no. The pregnancy was difficult from the start. Elena's body struggled with the burden of carrying 3 lives. She was exhausted constantly. Her back ached. Her feet swelled. By the 5th month, she had to stop working. The doctor put her on modified bed rest. By the 7th month, it was full bed rest. No exceptions. Marcus had continued working. In fact, he had worked more, longer hours, more travel, more time away from their apartment where Elena lay in bed, growing bigger and more uncomfortable by the day, reading books about premature babies and making lists of things they would need times 3. He had told himself he was providing for his family, building the financial foundation they would need. But the truth was simpler and darker. He was running away from the reality of what was coming. And somewhere in those months of absence, Vanessa Sterling had entered his life. She was 29, beautiful, and ruthlessly ambitious, the daughter of Harrison Sterling, whose investment firm was one of Marcus's largest backers. She moved through Marcus's world with the ease of someone born into power. She understood the game, the positioning, the careful dance of perception and reality that governed their circles. She had made it clear from the beginning what she wanted, and what she wanted was him. Not the version of him tied down by domestic obligations and crying babies. The version who could take risks and close deals and build an empire unencumbered. A CEO with a complicated family situation is a liability, she had told him one night over drinks after a board meeting. Investors want stability, focus, not someone distracted by diapers and preschool schedules. He had not disagreed. By the time Elena went into labor 7 weeks early, Marcus had already made his choice. He had already drafted the divorce papers with Richard's help. He had already opened separate bank accounts and moved assets into structures Elena would not have access to. He had already planned his exit down to the timing. He had waited only for the right moment. And when Elena's water broke at 32 weeks and the ambulance rushed her to the hospital, when the doctor said they needed to operate immediately or lose both mother and babies, Marcus had seen his window. While she fought for life, he signed papers ending their marriage. While she bled and was stitched back together, he canceled her insurance. While 3 premature infants took their first mechanical breaths, he walked away without looking back. Clean, efficient, final. Or so he thought. When Elena woke 6 hours later, the first thing she felt was pain. Not the sharp, immediate kind that makes you gasp. This was deeper. The kind that lived in your bones and muscles. The kind that told you your body had been through something catastrophic and would take a long time to recover. The second thing she felt was confusion. She did not remember much after the ambulance. Flashes of light, voices talking fast, someone saying her blood pressure was dropping, someone else saying they needed to operate now, the rush of movement as they wheeled her somewhere, and then nothing. Now she was in a bed with rails. An IV line ran into her arm. Monitors beeped softly somewhere behind her head. The room was dim. Early morning light filtered through a window to her left. "My babies." The words came out as barely a whisper. Her throat was raw from the breathing tube they had removed while she was still unconscious. A nurse appeared beside her bed. Maria Rodriguez, though Elena did not know her name yet. She had kind eyes and moved with the confidence of someone who had seen everything a hospital could throw at her and remained gentle anyway. "Your babies are alive," Maria said softly. "They are fighters, all 3 of them." Relief crashed over Elena like a wave. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. "Can I see them?" Maria hesitated, just for a second, but long enough that Elena felt a spike of fear. "What?" Elena asked. "What is wrong?" "The babies are in the NICU. They are stable but very small, born at 32 weeks. They need breathing support and monitoring." "But they are okay?" "They are fighting. That is what matters right now." Elena tried to sit up. Pain exploded through her abdomen, and she gasped, falling back against the pillows. "Easy," Maria said, adjusting the bed slightly so Elena could see without straining. "You have been through major surgery. Your body needs time. I need to see them. Soon. Let me get the doctor first. There are some things you need to know." The way she said it made Elena's stomach drop. Not the words themselves, but the tone. The careful neutrality that nurses use when delivering bad news they would rather not deliver. Before Maria could leave, another woman entered the room. Claire Winters, hospital administrator. She carried a tablet and wore an expression that could have been carved from stone. This was not a woman who dealt in comfort or compassion. This was a woman who dealt in policies and procedures and the cold mathematics of healthcare billing. "Ms. Matthews," Claire said, and the way she said it made Elena's blood run cold. "It is Mrs. Bennett," Elena corrected automatically. No, Claire said flatly. It is not. She turned the tablet around. On the screen was a document, legal, official, filed with the state of New York at 3:15 a.m., approximately 30 minutes after Elena's surgery had been completed. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Granted. Elena stared at the words. They made no sense. They could not possibly mean what they appeared to mean. I do not understand, she said slowly. Your husband filed for divorce. It was finalized this morning. The room tilted. Elena gripped the bed rail with one hand, trying to anchor herself to something solid. That is impossible. I was unconscious. I did not sign anything. Your husband held power of attorney. The filing was legal. Power of attorney, the document they had signed when Elena's pregnancy became high risk. Just in case something happened and she could not make medical decisions for herself. Marcus was supposed to use it to help her, to speak for her if she could not speak. Instead, he had used it to erase her. Where is he? Elena demanded. I need to see him. There has been a mistake. Maria and Claire exchanged a glance. Maria's eyes were full of sympathy. Claire's were empty. Mr. Bennett left the hospital approximately 6 hours ago, Claire said. He has not returned. Then call him. Ms. Matthews, I do not think you understand. The divorce is final. Mr. Bennett made it clear he does not wish to be contacted. Elena felt like she was falling, like the bed beneath her was disappearing and she was tumbling through empty space with nothing to catch her. My babies, she whispered. Our babies are legally your responsibility now, Claire said. Which brings me to the second matter. Your insurance coverage has been terminated. Mr. Bennett filed the paperwork at 3:07 this morning. 30 minutes. He had waited 30 minutes after ending their marriage to cut off her medical insurance, while she was still in surgery, while their children fought for life in incubators. Extended NICU care for premature triplets is approximately $10,000 per day, Claire continued, her voice as flat as if she were reading a grocery list. We will need to discuss payment arrangements. $10,000 per day. Elena had maybe $3,000 in her personal account. Her credit cards were nearly maxed from preparing for the babies. Her job as an architect paid well enough for one person, but she had not worked in 3 months. And even if she could work now, who would hire an architect who could not visit job sites, who could not climb stairs or carry materials, whose body was still healing from major surgery? I do not have that kind of money, Elena said. Then we will need to explore alternative options, Claire replied. For now, the babies will continue to receive care, but we will need confirmation of payment responsibility within 48 hours. She left, just turned and walked out, leaving Elena alone with Maria and the crushing weight of impossible reality. Maria pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. She took Elena's hand gently. Listen to me, Maria said, and her voice was fierce in a way that cut through Elena's shock. You are gonna get through this. How? Elena asked, and her voice broke on the word. The same way every strong woman before you has. 1 minute at a time. And you are not alone. You have me. You have Dr. Morrison. You have people here who see what he did and will not let you fall. I do not even know how to be a mother yet, Elena whispered, and now I have to do it alone. To 3 babies who might not survive, with no money and no help and no idea what I am doing. Maria squeezed her hand. My grandmother used to say that God does not give us what we can handle. He just shows us we are stronger than we thought. You are stronger than you know, Elena. You just have not figured it out yet. Elena wanted to believe her, but all she felt in that moment was broken and abandoned, and so very, very afraid. Can I see them now? She asked. My babies, please. Maria stood. Let me get a wheelchair. The NICU was on the 3rd floor. Maria wheeled Elena through corridors that all looked the same. White walls, fluorescent lights, the perpetual hum of hospital machinery doing the work of living for those not yet strong enough to do it themselves. They stopped in front of a large window. Behind the glass was a room full of incubators, plastic boxes containing the smallest humans Elena had ever seen. Each one covered in wires and tubes, each one fighting a battle that should not have had to be fought yet. There, Maria said softly, pointing, the 3 on the left. Elena's breath caught in her throat. They were so small, impossibly small, like dolls made of glass, too fragile to touch. The one on the left, marked with a pink card labeled Baby Girl A, was slightly bigger than the others. She moved occasionally, tiny fists clenching and unclenching. The middle one, another girl labeled Baby Girl B, lay perfectly still, except for the steady rise and fall of her chest aided by the breathing machine. And the one on the right, Baby Boy, the smallest. A breathing tube down his throat, monitors everywhere. An IV line so thin it looked like it might break if someone breathed too hard nearby. Elena pressed her hand against the glass. She wanted to hold them, to feel their weight in her arms, to count their fingers and toes and whisper that everything would be okay. But she could not even touch them. The glass was cold beneath her palm. "Can I go in?" she asked. "Not yet. You are not cleared medically, and NICU access is limited right now due to the divorce." Maria's voice was gentle but firm. "What does that mean?" "It means we need legal clarification on custody before we can grant extended access." "They are my children." "I know, but until the court confirms it, hospital policy is restrictive." Elena felt something crack inside her chest. Not break, not yet, but fracture. A line appearing in foundation she had thought was solid. She looked at her 3 babies through the glass, at the monitors and machines keeping them alive, at their tiny bodies fighting so hard just to breathe. And she made a promise. Silent, fierce, unbreakable. "I am here," she whispered against the glass. "Mommy is here, and I will never leave you." "Do you hear me?" "Never." Baby girl A, the biggest one, moved her hand slightly, just a tiny flutter of fingers. Probably just reflex, probably just random nerve impulses. But to Elena, it felt like an answer, like her daughter had heard and was fighting to hold on. Elena stayed at that window for 20 minutes, just watching, just being present. Maria stood quietly behind her, saying nothing, letting this new mother have her moment, even though it was not the moment any of them had hoped for. Finally, Maria said gently, "You need rest. Your body is still healing." Elena did not want to leave. Every instinct screamed at her to stay, to keep watch, to protect them somehow through sheer force of will. But she was exhausted. The pain medication was wearing off and every movement hurt. She had not slept in almost 24 hours. "I will be back," she said to the glass. To her babies, who could not hear her. "First thing in the morning, I promise." Maria wheeled her back to her room. It was different now. Smaller, fewer windows, generic in a way that spoke of downgraded care and reduced resources. But Elena barely noticed. She was thinking about 3 impossibly small humans fighting for life, about how she was going to protect them, about how she was going to survive the next hour, let alone the next day or week or month. She thought about Marcus, about how he had held her hand during doctor's appointments and promised he would be there, about how he had kissed her goodbye that morning when the contractions started, told her to call him immediately if anything happened, about how somewhere in the hours between then and now, he had decided that his family was a burden too heavy to carry. She thought about the apartment they had shared. His clothes probably still hung in the closet. His coffee mug probably still sat in the sink. Evidence of a life they had built together. A life that apparently meant so little to him that he could erase it in the time it took to sign his name. She thought about Eleanor, her grandmother, dead now for 23 years but still present in Elena's memory. The woman who had taught her to bake bread and plant gardens, who had told her that family was everything, who had promised that love, real love, never abandoned you. "You were wrong, Grandma," Elena whispered into the empty room. "Love abandons people all the time." She closed her eyes. Sleep pulled at her despite everything. Her body demanded rest even though her mind was racing, even though every part of her wanted to stay awake and vigilant and ready to fight whatever came next. Just before sleep claimed her, her phone buzzed on the table beside her bed. For one hopeful, foolish second, she thought it might be Marcus, calling to say there had been a terrible mistake, calling to say he was coming back. But when she picked it up with shaking hands, the screen showed nothing. No new messages, no missed calls. She checked every app, every platform, everywhere he might have tried to reach her. Nothing. He had blocked her completely. Every number, every email, every social media account. He had severed every line of communication as efficiently as he had severed their marriage. Elena set the phone down. She lay back against the pillows. And finally, she let herself cry. Not quiet tears, not dignified grief. This was ugly, choking sobs that hurt her healing incision and made her whole body shake. This was the sound of a heart breaking in real time. Maria heard it from the hallway. She stood outside Elena's door for a long moment, hand raised to knock, trying to decide if intrusion or privacy was the kinder gift. In the end, she chose presence. She opened the door quietly and sat in the chair beside Elena's bed. She did not speak. She did not offer platitudes or false comfort. She just sat there in the dim room while a stranger cried herself into exhausted sleep. Sometimes, Maria knew, the greatest kindness is simply bearing witness. Simply saying without words, "You are not alone. Someone sees your pain. Someone knows you are breaking and will stay anyway." And that night, in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and despair, Elena Matthews was not alone. Not completely. Not yet. This is only the beginning of Elena's story. What she did not know yet was that her grandmother had seen this coming. Not the specific details, but the shape of it. The way life sometimes crushes us precisely when we are most vulnerable. The way the people we trust most can become our greatest betrayers. Eleanor Matthews had known that wealth without protection was meaningless. That love without power could be stolen. That kindness needed a sword to defend it. And so she had built something. Quietly. Carefully. Over decades. A fortress made of legal documents and financial instruments and the kind of foresight that comes from living long enough to understand how the world really works. She had built it for a granddaughter she would never meet as an adult, for babies she would never hold, for a future she would not live to see. But the foundation was there, waiting, ready. Elena just did not know it yet, and neither did Marcus Bennett, which was his first and greatest mistake. Because the man who walked away from 3 premature infants and the woman who loved him had just started a war he could not possibly win. He had signed away his marriage, his children, and his future in 7 minutes. In the months ahead, he would learn what those 7 minutes truly cost. But on this November night, as the city slept and 3 tiny humans fought for breath and one woman cried herself into exhausted sleep, the reckoning was still to come. Justice, after all, is patient. It can wait, and it was waiting now. Just on the other side of morning. Morning came whether Elena was ready for it or not. The hospital woke early, as hospitals do. 6 a.m. rounds, medication carts rattling down hallways. The endless beeping of monitors measuring lives in numbers and graphs. Elena had slept for perhaps 3 hours total. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus walking away. Every time she drifted towards sleep, she jerked awake with panic clawing at her throat. Her phone sat on the bedside table, silent, empty of messages that would never come. Maria appeared at 7 with breakfast that Elena could not imagine eating and a manila envelope that looked like it had been waiting for years. "This came for you," Maria said, setting the tray aside. "Registered mail. The address clerk said it has been sitting in storage since before you arrived." Elena took the envelope with hands that still trembled slightly. The sender's address was printed in formal block letters. Chen and Associates. Trust law specialists. An address in Lower Manhattan that suggested old money and established power. "I do not understand," Elena said. "I never contacted any trust lawyers." "Maybe you should open it." Inside was a single business card, heavy stock, embossed lettering. Thomas Chen, attorney at law, specializing in estate planning and trust administration. And beneath that, handwritten in precise script, "Your grandmother was a remarkable woman. When you are ready, call me." Elena stared at the words. Her grandmother had been dead for 23 years. What could a trust lawyer possibly want with her now? But she had nothing else. No money, no plan, no idea how she was going to survive the next week, let alone raise 3 premature babies alone. So she picked up her phone and dialed the number with fingers that shook only slightly less than before. The phone rang twice before a man answered. His voice was calm, professional, but warm in a way that lawyers' voices rarely are. "Chen and Associates. Thomas Chen speaking. This is Elena Matthews. I received your card, but I think there has been a mistake. I cannot afford a lawyer." "Ms. Matthews, Something in his voice changed, softened. I have been hoping you would call. There is no mistake, and you are not hiring me. Your grandmother retained our firm over 40 years ago. Elena's breath caught. You knew my grandmother? Not personally, but my mother did. They were best friends for 50 years. Eleanor Matthews was one of the most remarkable women I have ever heard of, even though I never had the privilege of meeting her. I do not understand. My grandmother was a school teacher. She did not have money for lawyers. Miss Matthews, your grandmother was many things, but primarily she was someone who understood that love without power is too easily destroyed. She built something to protect her family, and now that protection extends to you. Elena felt dizzy. The room seemed to tilt slightly. What are you talking about? It is complicated, too complicated for a phone call. Can I come to you? I understand you are in the hospital. I can be there in an hour. Mr. Chen, I really cannot pay you. You already have, through a trust your grandmother established 43 years ago. Please, Miss Matthews, give me 1 hour. If you do not want my help after we talk, I will leave and you will never hear from me again. Something in his voice made her believe him. Or maybe she was just desperate enough to grasp at any lifeline, no matter how unlikely. Room 412, she said, 4th floor. I will be there at 9. He hung up. Elena stared at the phone, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Her grandmother had known a trust lawyer, had established something 43 years ago. None of it made any sense. But then nothing in the last 24 hours made sense. So perhaps this was just one more impossible thing in a world that had suddenly become unrecognizable. Thomas Chen arrived at exactly 9 o'clock. He was 44 years old, though he looked younger. Asian American, dressed in a well-tailored suit that managed to look expensive without being ostentatious. He carried a leather briefcase that was worn enough to suggest years of use, but cared for enough to suggest it mattered. Maria let him in, though she stayed near the door. Protective, ready to throw him out if he turned out to be one more person taking advantage of a vulnerable woman. Thomas set his briefcase on the small table and pulled out a photograph. Old, faded. 2 women in their 30s standing in what looked like a garden. One was Chinese, one was white. Both were laughing at something beyond the camera's frame. My mother, Thomas said, pointing to the Chinese woman, and your grandmother. Elena took the photo with careful hands. She recognized Eleanor immediately. Younger than Elena had ever known her, but unmistakable. The same warm eyes, the same smile that made you feel like you were the most important person in the world. They met in 1970, Thomas continued. My mother had just immigrated. She spoke almost no English. Your grandmother was her neighbor. She helped my mother learn the language, find work, navigate a country that was not always kind to people who looked like her. I never knew, Elena whispered. Your grandmother did not talk about her kindnesses. She just lived them. Thomas pulled out another document. Legal papers, old but meticulously preserved. In 1972, Eleanor Matthews came to my mother's husband, my father. He was a lawyer. She wanted to establish a trust. He spread the papers on the table. Elena saw her grandmother's signature at the bottom. Witnessed and notarized. Legal and binding. The Matthews Sterling Trust, Thomas said. Named for your grandmother's maiden name and her mother's maiden name. Built over 40 years through careful investment and strategic acquisition. Current value approximately $2.8 billion. The number was so large it did not even register as real. Elena just stared at him. That is impossible. My mother never mentioned anything like this. We were middle class. We lived in a small house in Queens. There was no money. Because your grandmother gave your mother a choice, Thomas explained gently. When your mother turned 18, Eleanor sat her down and told her about the trust. But she also told her that if she chose to access it, she would have to live a certain kind of life. Manage it, protect it, be responsible for enormous wealth. Your mother chose differently. She chose my father. She chose love. She chose a simple life with a man she adored and a daughter she would raise without the burden of dynastic wealth. Eleanor respected that choice. So she let the trust continue to grow, waiting for the next generation. For me, for you, but not automatically. Your grandmother built in a very specific trigger. The trust only activates under particular circumstances. Elena's head was spinning. None of this seemed real. What circumstances? Thomas pulled out one more document, the trust deed itself. He pointed to a clause halfway down the second page. Multi-heir activation provision. The trust remains dormant until a direct female descendant of Eleanor Matthews gives birth to 3 or more children simultaneously. Triplets, quadruplets, any multiple birth of 3 or more. Elena felt the air leave her lungs. My babies. The moment they were born, the trust activated. Automatically. Irrevocably. Right now, it is in a 90-day probate review. DNA testing. Document verification. Standard legal procedure. But when that review completes, you will have full access to everything. Why? Elena asked. Why would she make it so specific? Thomas sat down in the chair beside her bed. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost reverent. My mother told me once that Eleanor Matthews believed in protection. She watched too many women lose everything because they had no power. No resources, no way to fight back when the men they trusted betrayed them. She wanted to make sure that any woman in her line who found herself in that position would have what she needed. She knew this would happen. Not specifically, but she knew that life crushes people, especially women, especially mothers. She wanted her granddaughter or great-granddaughter or whoever came after her to have armor when they needed it most. Tears were streaming down Elena's face now. I wish I had known her better. I was only 8 when she died. She knew you, though. My mother said Eleanor talked about you constantly in the last year of her life, about how kind you were, how you noticed when people were sad and tried to help them, how you had her eyes and her heart. She said you would do remarkable things with the trust when it was your time. I do not feel remarkable. I feel broken. Most strong people do, right before they discover how strong they actually are. There was a knock at the door. Maria answered it. Another man stood in the hallway, older than Thomas, maybe 42 or 43, silver just beginning to show at his temples. He wore jeans and a sweater rather than a suit, carried flowers in what looked like hand-knit baby blankets. I am sorry to interrupt, he said, and his voice was gentle, uncertain. Maria said I could come up. I am Daniel Rhodes. I was a friend of Eleanor Matthews. Thomas stood. Daniel, I was hoping you would come. Elena looked between them, confused. I do not understand. Daniel stepped into the room slowly, not pushing, not presuming. Your grandmother asked me to watch over her family if they ever needed help. I know that sounds strange. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I owe Eleanor Matthews everything, and I would like to help if you will let me. Why would you owe her anything? Daniel set the flowers on the windowsill and the blankets on the chair. Each blanket had an initial embroidered in the corner. As 20 years ago, I was bankrupt, Daniel said simply. My business partner destroyed me. Legally, financially, I lost everything. My house, my company. My marriage ended because my wife could not handle the shame of poverty. She took our daughter and I did not see her again for 5 years. I was living in a studio apartment in Queens, working 3 jobs just to pay off the debt, when I met your grandmother. How? I was doing landscaping work. Her neighbor hired me to do their garden. Eleanor came outside with lemonade one afternoon. We talked. She asked why I looked so sad. And somehow, I told her everything. This complete stranger, I just poured out the whole story. He sat down on the edge of the other chair, hands clasped between his knees. The next week, she showed up at my apartment with a lawyer, her lawyer, my father, actually. Thomas nodded. She had him review my case. Turns out my partner had committed fraud. But I could not afford to fight him. Eleanor could. She funded the lawsuit. It took 3 years, but we won. I got back everything he had stolen, plus damages, enough to start over. That is an incredible story, Elena said softly. But I still do not understand what you want from me. Nothing, Daniel said, and the honesty in his voice was unmistakable. Before she died, Eleanor asked me to watch over her family. She said someday they might need help and she would not be there to give it. So I have been waiting. 20 years. And now you need help. So here I am. Elena wanted to trust him, wanted to believe that people could be this kind without wanting something in return. But Marcus had taught her that trust was foolish, that people only helped when it benefited them. What kind of help? She asked carefully. Practical help. You need a place to stay, somewhere close to the hospital so you can be near your babies. I own a building 3 blocks from here, small apartments. I have one vacant, furnished. You can stay there, no rent, no strings. I cannot accept charity. It is not charity. It is fulfilling a promise to someone who saved my life. Please, let me do this. Thomas spoke up. Elena, you are going to need somewhere to recover, somewhere safe. I have reviewed your financial situation as part of the trust documentation. Right now, you have less than $3,000. That will last you perhaps 2 weeks if you are very careful. After that, you have nothing. The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. She had been trying not to think about money, about how she was going to eat or pay for transportation to the hospital or afford the 1,000 other things she would need. I do not like needing help, she said quietly. Nobody does, Daniel replied. But needing help and accepting it are 2 different kinds of strength. One is weakness, the other is wisdom. Elena looked at the blankets he had brought, hand-knit, soft, made with care by someone who did not know her children, but cared anyway. Okay, she said finally. Okay, thank you. Daniel smiled. It transformed his face from serious to kind. I will have the apartment ready by this afternoon. Maria has my number. Call when you are discharged, and I will help you move in. After he left, Elena sat in silence for a long moment. Thomas was organizing his papers, giving her space to process. Is he real? She asked finally. Is any of this real? Very real. Daniel Rhodes is worth approximately $400 million now. He rebuilt his company and never forgot where he came from. He donates half his income to organizations that help people escaping financial abuse. And he has been quietly waiting for 20 years to repay a debt to a woman who asked for nothing except that he help her family if they ever needed it. And the trust? That is real too? Every word. In 87 days, you will have access to more money than you can probably imagine. But more importantly, right now, today, you have something else. What? Protection. During the 90-day probate review, you are classified as a protected beneficiary under New York trust law. That means anyone who attempts to financially coerce you or interfere with your rights is committing a federal offense. Elena's mind was still catching up. What does that mean practically? It means your ex-husband cutting off your insurance 20 minutes after divorcing you while you were unconscious? That is a federal crime. It means him trying to pressure you into anything regarding custody or finances? Federal crime? It means you are not helpless, Elena. You have the law protecting you now. For the first time since waking up in this hospital bed, Elena felt something other than despair. Not hope exactly, not yet, but possibility. The first crack of light in overwhelming darkness. What do I do now? She asked. Now you heal. You spend time with your babies. You let Daniel help you with the practical things. And you let me handle the legal ones. Marcus Bennett has no idea what he has done. He thinks he divorced a woman with no resources and no power. He has no idea he just triggered federal protection for a woman who will soon control nearly $3 billion. He is going to find out, though. Eventually, but not yet. Right now, we document everything. Every action he takes. Every pressure he applies. Every attempt to interfere with your rights as a mother. We build a case so airtight that when the time comes, he will have no defense. That sounds like revenge. No, revenge is emotional. This is justice. There is a difference. Across the city, in a penthouse that looked out over Central Park, Marcus Bennett was having a very different morning. He had slept well, better than he had in months. The anxiety that had plagued him through Elena's pregnancy was gone. The weight of impending fatherhood lifted. He felt free in a way he had almost forgotten was possible. Vanessa Sterling was making coffee in his kitchen. She moved through the space like she owned it. In many ways she did. Her father's money backed most of Marcus's company. Her influence opened doors that would otherwise remain closed. She was beautiful and smart and completely without sentimentality. She was perfect. Sleep well? She asked, handing him an espresso. Better than I have in months. No regrets? None. She kissed him. light, possessive, marking territory. Good. The charity gala is tonight. Time to be seen together properly. Marcus nodded. The gala was important. Investors, board members, people who needed to see that his personal life was stable and uncomplicated, that he was a man who made hard decisions and moved forward without looking back. His phone buzzed. Email. He glanced at it while drinking his coffee. The subject line made him pause. R.E. Matthews Sterling Trust. Initial notification. He frowned. Spam, probably. Some scam pretending to be about a trust to get people to click malicious links. He deleted it without reading and finished his coffee. 2 hours later, in her own office 20 blocks away, Vanessa Sterling received the same email. Unlike Marcus, she opened it. She read every word, and with each sentence, her face went paler. Matthews Sterling Trust, established 1972, current value $2.8 billion. Beneficiary, Elena Matthews. Status, activated upon birth of 3 minor heirs. Protected beneficiary designation active. Vanessa read it twice, then a third time. Then she picked up her phone and called her private investigator. I need everything on Elena Matthews. Family history, financial records, legal documents, everything. I needed it yesterday. She hung up and stared at the email. Marcus had divorced Elena Matthews thinking she was nobody. A middle-class architect with no family money and no resources. But if this email was real, if that trust was legitimate, then Elena Matthews was about to become one of the wealthiest women in New York. And worse, much worse. Vanessa pulled up the trust documentation that had been attached. There, buried in the list of assets, she found it. Voting shares in 12 companies, including Sterling Investments. If Elena gained control of this trust, she would have more voting power in Vanessa's own family company than Vanessa's father. More power than the Sterling family had held for 3 generations. Marcus had not just divorced his wife, he had created an enemy with the resources to destroy them both. You idiot, Vanessa whispered to the empty office. You absolute idiot. Elena was discharged 2 days later. Hospital policy was strict. She could not stay past the point of medical necessity. Her incision was healing. Her vitals were stable. The fact that she had nowhere to go and 3 premature babies still fighting for life in the NICU did not factor into their calculations. Daniel met her at the hospital entrance with a car. Not a limousine, not anything ostentatious, just a comfortable sedan with heated seats and a driver who loaded her small bag of belongings into the trunk without comment. The apartment was 10 minutes away. 3rd floor of a brownstone, 1 bedroom, small kitchen, clean and furnished with the kind of comfortable simplicity that suggested money spent wisely rather than showily. There was a crib already assembled in the bedroom. Actually, there were 3 cribs, small ones, appropriate for premature babies. I hope that is okay, Daniel said, hovering uncertainly in the doorway. I thought when they come home, you would need them. Elena stood in the bedroom doorway staring at the cribs. Her throat was tight. You did not have to do this. I know, I wanted to. She turned to face him, really looked at him for the first time. He had kind eyes, sad eyes, the eyes of someone who had been broken and rebuilt and still remembered what breaking felt like. Why, she asked. I do not understand why you are doing this. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. Because 20 years ago, I was where you are now, lost, abandoned, with a child I could not take care of and no idea how to survive the next day. Your grandmother helped me without expecting anything in return. She taught me that kindness is not a transaction. It is a choice, and I am choosing to help you the way she helped me. That is all. But you do not even know me. I know enough. I know you are a mother fighting for 3 premature babies. I know your husband abandoned you at your most vulnerable moment. I know you are trying to be strong when you feel broken. That is enough. Elena sat down on the edge of the bed because her legs suddenly felt unsteady. I do not know how to do this, any of this. Be a single mother, raise 3 babies alone, navigate this world without Marcus. Daniel sat in the chair across from her, not close, respecting space. You do it 1 minute at a time, 1 decision, 1 breath. You do not have to know the whole path. You just have to take the next step. What if I fail? Then you get up and take another step. That is all any of us can do. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, the city moved on with its endless bustle. Cars honked, people shouted. Life continued regardless of individual tragedy or triumph. But here, in this small apartment, 3 blocks from the hospital where her babies fought for life, Elena felt something she had not felt in days. Safe, not happy, not healed, but safe. Like maybe, just maybe, she could survive this. The next 8 weeks were a blur of hospital visits and fear and small victories that felt enormous. Elena lived in the rhythm of the NICU, up at 6, at the hospital by 7, sitting beside 3 incubators, learning to read the monitors, learning what each beep and alarm meant, learning how to change a diaper through the porthole of an incubator, how to feed babies so small that a full meal was measured in milliliters, how to do kangaroo care, holding her impossibly tiny children against her chest so they could feel her heartbeat and remember what it meant to be held. Thomas came twice a week with updates, DNA test completed, documents filed, the 90-day review proceeding on schedule, and most importantly, documentation. Every attempt Marcus made to interfere with custody, every legal filing, every communication from his lawyers, all of it building into a record that would matter when the time came. Daniel came every few days, never empty-handed, sometimes with food, sometimes with practical things Elena did not know she needed until he arrived with them. A comfortable chair for her apartment, a heating pad for her still-healing incision. Once, inexplicably, a very soft blanket that he said helped him sleep when his own life was falling apart. He never pushed, never asked for anything, just showed up, was present, left again. It was the kind of kindness that did not demand acknowledgement or gratitude. The kind that simply existed because it should. By Thanksgiving, the babies had made remarkable progress. Lily, the biggest, was off oxygen completely. She had gained almost 2 pounds and was starting to look less like a fragile glass doll and more like an actual baby. Sophia, the middle child, was close behind, still needing some breathing support at night, but stronger every day. Noah, the smallest, struggled. He had a setback in week 4, an infection that nearly killed him. Elena spent 3 days beside his incubator, sleeping in a chair, refusing to leave. Maria brought her food she did not eat and coffee she drank cold. Dr. Morrison checked on him every 2 hours instead of every 4, and somehow, impossibly, he fought through it. On Thanksgiving Day, Maria brought Elena a turkey sandwich in the NICU family room. "Happy Thanksgiving," Maria said, setting down the plate. Elena had forgotten what day it was. Time had become meaningless, just a cycle of feedings and diaper changes and monitor readings. "I do not feel very thankful," Elena admitted. "No," Maria sat beside her. "Your babies are alive. All 3. Against odds that would have broken most people. You are here, you are fighting, that is something to be thankful for." Elena looked through the window at her 3 tiny warriors. "My grandmother used to say we should count our blessings, not our burdens." Smart woman. She was. I wish I had known her better. Wish she could have met them. Elena gestured toward the babies. "Maybe she has. My grandmother believed that love does not end with death, that the people who loved us watch over us. Maybe Eleanor is watching now." Elena wanted to believe that, wanted to think that somewhere, somehow, her grandmother saw these 3 miracles and was proud. That night, alone in her apartment, Elena called the hospital to check on the babies one more time before sleep. The nurse assured her they were all stable, all doing well, all fighting. She hung up and stared at the ceiling. 3 months ago, she had been married, pregnant, planning a future that seemed certain. Now that future was ashes. But in its place, something else was growing, something she could not quite name yet. Not hope exactly, but possibility. The sense that maybe, just maybe, she was stronger than she had ever known. Outside her window, the city glittered with lights, millions of lives intersecting and diverging, millions of stories unfolding in parallel. And somewhere across that city, Marcus Bennett was living his new life, unaware that the woman he had discarded was about to become the biggest mistake he had ever made. But not yet. Not quite yet. The trap was being set. piece by piece, day by day, and soon, very soon, it would spring. The call came on day 60. Elena was at the hospital doing afternoon kangaroo care with Noah when her phone buzzed. A number she did not recognize, but a name she would never forget, appeared on the screen. Marcus Bennett. For a long moment, she just stared at it. Her first instinct was not to answer, to let it go to voicemail, to pretend she had not seen it. But something made her yuck up, maybe curiosity, maybe the need to hear his voice and confirm that, yes, he was real. This had really happened. She had not imagined the entire nightmare. Hello? Her voice was steady, stronger than she felt. Elena. He sounded tired, or perhaps that was just what guilt sounded like when it finally caught up to someone. We need to talk. I do not think we have anything to talk about. Please, just hear me out. I want to make things right. She almost laughed, almost. You want to make things right 3 months after you divorced me while I was unconscious and cut off our children's insurance while they fought for their lives. Now you want to make things right. I know I handled things badly. Badly, you call abandoning your family badly. There was silence on the other end. Then, can we meet? Just the two of us. No lawyers. I have a proposal that I think will help everyone. Elena looked down at Noah sleeping against her chest. So small still, so fragile, but alive, fighting, stronger than anyone had predicted. Why would I meet with you? Because despite everything, those are my children too, and I want to do right by them. Please, Elena, one conversation. That is all I am asking. Against every instinct, against the advice she knew Thomas would give, she agreed. Maybe because she needed to look him in the eye. Maybe because some small part of her still hoped for an explanation that would make sense of the senseless. Or maybe because she was just tired of being afraid. Tomorrow, Union Square Cafe, noon. Thank you, Marcus said, and he actually sounded relieved. Elena hung up and immediately called Thomas. He wants to meet, she said, tomorrow. Alone? He specifically said no lawyers. Thomas was quiet for a moment. This is the settlement offer. He is going to try to buy you out of the trust. How do you know? Because that is what desperate men do when they realize they have made a catastrophic mistake. They try to fix it with money. Elena, you do not have to do this. I know, but I want to. I need to see him. I need to understand why. There is no why that will satisfy you. Trust me on this. Maybe not, but I still need to try. Thomas sighed. Okay, but you are going to wear a wire and I am going to be at a table nearby. You are not walking into this unprotected. A wire? That seems excessive. Elena, this man destroyed you when you were at your most vulnerable. He cut off life support for his own children. He is capable of anything. We document everything. That is how we protect you. So the next day, Elena found herself standing outside Union Square Cafe with a recording device smaller than a quarter tape beneath her shirt. Thomas was already inside, seated at a corner table with a newspaper. Daniel had insisted on driving her. He waited in the car a block away, just in case. Marcus was already there when she walked in, sitting at a table by the window. He looked thinner than she remembered, older. There were lines around his eyes that had not been there before. His suit was still expensive. His watch still spoke of wealth and success. But something had changed, something had dimmed. He stood when he saw her, an automatic gesture of manners learned long ago. Elena, thank you for coming. She sat without shaking his hand, without any of the small courtesies that people exchange when they pretend civility can cover wounds that go bone deep. You look tired, Marcus said. 3 premature babies will do that. How are they? The question landed wrong, too casual, too much like small talk, as if he were asking about the weather rather than the children he had abandoned. They are alive, Elena said flatly. No thanks to you. Marcus flinched. Good. Let him feel even a fraction of what she had felt. I know I handled things badly, he started. You said that on the phone. You are going to need to be more specific. The timing, the way I did it. I was under enormous pressure. The company, the IPO, I was not thinking clearly. You were thinking clearly enough to have divorce papers drawn up, to file them while I was unconscious, to cancel the insurance before my blood had even been cleaned up. Elena, please. No, you wanted this meeting. You are going to sit here and listen. You walked away from 3 babies who were fighting to breathe. You left me with nothing. No money, no insurance, no explanation. You blocked my calls and disappeared. So no, Marcus, you do not get to sit there and tell me you were stressed. We are all stressed. Most of us do not abandon our families because of it. He looked down at his hands. She noticed he was no longer wearing his wedding ring. Of course not. That life had been erased as efficiently as everything else. You are right, he said quietly. There is no excuse, but I want to try to make it right now. He slid a folder across the table. Expensive leather, the kind that contained important documents. Life-changing offers. I have spoken to my lawyers. This is a settlement proposal. $50,000 per month in child support until the children turn 18, plus a lump sum of $2 million for you, to help you get back on your feet. Elena did not open the folder, did not even touch it. In exchange for what? Joint custody, shared decision-making, and a waiver of any third-party financial claims. There it was, the trap barely disguised as generosity. What third-party claims? Marcus hesitated, just for a second, but long enough that she knew he was lying even before he spoke. Just legal language. My attorneys insist on comprehensive waivers. Standard procedure. There is nothing standard about any of this. Elena, I am offering you financial security. More money than you would make in 5 years. I am trying to help. She looked at him, really looked. Tried to find the man she had married in this stranger sitting across from her. The man who had held her hand during ultrasounds, who had promised to be there, who had looked at her with what she had believed was love. He was not there. Maybe he had never been there. Maybe she had invented him out of hope and loneliness, in the desperate need to believe someone could love her completely. Did you ever love me? She asked. Or was I just convenient? The question clearly caught him off guard. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. I thought I did. That is not the same thing. No, it is not. I am sorry, Elena, I truly am. I am sorry it was not enough. She felt something inside her chest crack. Not her heart. That had broken weeks ago, but something else. Some last thread of connection, some final hope that maybe there had been something real beneath the lies. I will have my lawyer review your offer, she said, standing. Elena, wait. The offer expires in 48 hours. After that, we go to court. And I will win. You know I will. I have resources, connections, the best lawyers money can buy. She looked down at him. This man who had once seemed so powerful, so certain. Now he just looked small, desperate, afraid of something he could not name. Maybe, she said, or maybe you have already lost and just do not know it yet. She walked out without looking back. Thomas followed at a distance. When she reached the car, Daniel took one look at her face and asked no questions, just drove her back to the apartment in silence. That night, Thomas came by with a recording and a document of his own. He played the audio back. Every word crystal clear, every lie documented. He knows about the trust, Thomas said, that reference to third-party claims. That is him trying to get you to waive your rights to it. But I never told him. He found out somehow, or someone told him. Either way, he is scared. That offer. That is not generosity. That is panic. So what do we do? Thomas smiled. It was not a kind smile. We let him think it worked. We signed his agreement, but with one small addition. He pulled out papers of his own, nearly identical to Marcus's proposal, but with one paragraph added. Dense legal language that would take a lawyer to parse. Something about acknowledging protected beneficiary status under New York Trust, Law Section 7-1-6. What does that mean? Elena asked. It means that when Marcus signs this, he is acknowledging that he knew about your protected status, that he knew about the trust, that every action he took, cutting the insurance, filing the divorce, all of it, was done with full knowledge that you were a protected beneficiary, which makes every single action premeditated financial coercion, a federal crime. Elena stared at the document. You want me to trick him? I want you to let him destroy himself. He is so focused on getting you to waive the trust that he will not read the fine print. He will see what he wants to see. Sign where his lawyer tells him to sign. And in doing so, he will confess to everything. It feels dishonest. Dishonest would be lying to him. We are not lying. We are simply including language that protects you. If he chooses not to read it carefully, that is his mistake, not yours. Elena thought about Noah, about the infection that had nearly killed him while Marcus was probably having dinner with Vanessa Sterling, about Lily and Sophia and the countless hours she had spent beside their incubators while their father lived his new life without them. Okay, she said, let us do it. The signing happened 2 days later in Marcus's lawyer's office. A formal space with mahogany furniture and walls lined with law books nobody had probably opened in decades. Marcus was there. His attorney, Richard Kemp. Vanessa Sterling, sitting in the corner like a shadow. Elena arrived with Thomas. They had rehearsed this. She knew her role. Appear hesitant, uncertain, maybe even a little broken. Let Marcus think he had won. Richard Kemp laid out the documents with practiced efficiency, page after page of legal language. Thomas read each one slowly, carefully. Marcus grew impatient. It is all standard language, Counselor, Richard said. We have already reviewed the terms. I like to be thorough, Thomas replied mildly. Finally, they reached the signature pages. Thomas had inserted his modified version so seamlessly that it was nearly impossible to tell it was not the original. The same letterhead, the same formatting, just one additional paragraph buried on page 12. Marcus signed first, quick, confident, the signature of a man who believes he has outmaneuvered his opponent. Then Elena. Her hand only shook a little, just enough to sell the performance. Witnesses signed. Richard Kemp notarized. It was done. You made the right choice, Marcus said as they stood to leave. Elena looked at him one last time. I hope you can live with yourself. I already have. Outside in the car, Thomas was grinning. Actually grinning. Elena had never seen him smile like that. What? She asked. He did not read page 12, not even close. He signed a full confession without knowing it. How long until he figures it out? Depends on how fast his lawyers are, but by the time they do, it will be too late. The document is filed. The trap is sprung. Now we wait. They did not have to wait long. 5 days later, Marcus Bennett received an email. Routine, boring, the kind that usually got deleted without being read. But his assistant flagged it as important, forwarded it with a note. Legal needs to see this immediately. Emergency board meeting. Today, 2 p.m., mandatory attendance. Marcus frowned. He was the CEO. He called emergency board meetings. Nobody called them for him. But he went. Because in the world of corporate governance, you went when the board summoned you. No matter what, the conference room was full when he arrived. Every board member, the company's legal counsel, 3 lawyers he had never seen before, all of them with faces that gave nothing away. Patricia Morgan, the board chair, gestured to a seat. Sit down, Marcus. He sat, unease crawling up his spine. We have received notification from the New York Surrogate Court, Patricia began, regarding a Matthew Sterling trust. Are you familiar with this trust? Marcus felt his mouth go dry. I've heard of it. Have you? Patricia's voice was flat. When did you hear of it? Recently, my ex-wife may be connected to it somehow. Jennifer Wu, the company's legal counsel, leaned forward. Marcus, your ex-wife is not connected to this trust. She is the sole beneficiary of $2.8 billion. The room tilted slightly. Marcus gripped the edge of the table. That is impossible. It is very possible and very real. More importantly, you signed this document 5 days ago. She turned her tablet around. There, in his own handwriting, was his signature, and above it, the paragraph he had not read. The acknowledgement of Elena's protected beneficiary status, the admission that he had known. I did not. That was not. You signed it, Marcus, with witnesses. You acknowledged that you were aware your ex-wife held protected status under federal trust law, which means every action you took, the divorce, the insurance cancellation, the custody filings, all of it was done with full knowledge of her protected status. Do you understand what that means? Marcus could not speak, could barely breathe. It means you committed federal financial coercion against a protected beneficiary. It means you exposed this company to massive liability. Three of our major investors have already pulled their commitments. Sterling Investments has frozen all capital transfers. The IPO is dead. And you did this. You. I was tricked, Marcus managed. That is not a legal defense. You signed a legal document without reading it. That is negligence at best, malicious intent at worst. Either way, you have destroyed this company's credibility. Patricia Morgan's voice was ice. The board has voted. Effective immediately, you are on administrative leave pending resolution of your legal situation. Security will escort you from the building. You cannot do this. I built this company. And you endangered it. We have fiduciary duties, Marcus, to our shareholders, to our employees. We cannot have a CEO under federal investigation for financial crimes. Two security guards appeared at the door. Marcus looked around the table, at faces he had known for years, people he had worked with, built relationships with. They looked back with nothing. No sympathy, no loyalty, just cold calculation. He was walked out like a criminal, his belongings in a box, employees staring as he passed, whispers following him like ghosts. Everything he had built, everything he had sacrificed for, gone in 15 minutes. In his car, alone for the first time in hours, Marcus called Vanessa. It went to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. Finally, a text. We need to talk. Tonight. She came to his penthouse that evening. He had been drinking. Not much, but enough that the edges were softer than they should be. Enough that he did not immediately notice the coldness in her eyes. Did you hear? He asked. The whole city heard. You are trending on financial Twitter. Help me. Your father has influence. He can fix this. Vanessa actually laughed. It was not a nice sound. My father will not take your calls. Do you know why? Vanessa, please. Because Elena Matthews now holds voting shares in Sterling Investments. More than our family. More than we have held for 3 generations. Because of that trust you somehow did not know about. Marcus stared at her. How was that possible? Because her grandmother was brilliant, and you were too arrogant to do basic research on the woman you married. The woman you destroyed. I thought you understood. You told me to end it. You said a family was a liability. I said a complicated family was a liability. I did not tell you to create a mortal enemy with the resources to obliterate us both. She picked up her purse, collected the few items of hers that had accumulated in his apartment over the months. A scarf, a book, small markers of a relationship that had never been real. Where are you going? Damage control. My reputation matters more than your feelings. So you are just leaving. She turned at the door. What did you think this was, Marcus? Love? This was strategic. A partnership, and you failed. You exposed me to liability. You made me look like a fool. I do not stay with failures. The door closed. Marcus stood alone in his penthouse. The city spread out below him. Millions of lights, millions of lives, and his, suddenly, unbearably small. The custody hearing was scheduled for day 87, 3 days before the trust review would be completed, 3 days before Elena would have access to everything. But she did not need it anymore. What she needed was her children. The rest was just numbers. Family court was different from the boardrooms Marcus was used to. Smaller, less formal, but somehow more intimidating. Because here, money mattered less than truth. And the truth was not kind to Marcus Bennett. Judge Catherine Morrison presided. She was 60 years old and had heard every excuse humans could manufacture for abandoning their children. None of them impressed her anymore. Marcus's lawyer presented first. It was weak. They argued financial stability, though Marcus no longer had a job. They argued his intent to be involved, though the evidence showed the opposite. They talked about rights and legal frameworks and careful language designed to obscure simple facts. Then it was Elena's turn. Thomas called Dr. Sarah Morrison first. No relation to the judge, but 30 years of credibility in neonatal care. Dr. Morrison, how many times did Marcus Bennett visit the NICU after signing the divorce papers? 0 times. 0 in 90 days? Correct. And Elena Matthews? She was present 8 to 12 hours daily, every single day. She learned medical terminology to better advocate for her children. She made every medical decision. She was there for every crisis. Mr. Bennett made 0 visits and 0 decisions. Maria Rodriguez testified next about the night Marcus left, about the timestamp, about Elena fighting to see her babies while their father erased them from his life. Then came the hospital records, visitation logs, medical decisions, everything documented, everything damning. Finally, Thomas put Marcus on the stand. Mr. Bennett, what are your children's current weights? Silence. Their feeding schedule? Silence. Can you name one medication they are currently taking? Marcus looked at his lawyer, at the judge, at Elena sitting calm and quiet at the plaintiff's table. I do not know, he admitted. You do not know because you never asked. You never visited. You never called. You walked away from 3 premature infants and convinced yourself it did not matter. Is that correct? I made mistakes. Mistakes. You call abandoning your dying children mistakes. Marcus's voice broke. I was scared. I did not know how to handle it, the pressure, the responsibility. I ran. I am not proud of it, but I ran. It was the first true thing he had said in months, but truth, Judge Morrison knew, does not erase consequences. Elena testified last. Ms. Matthews, the judge said gently, what do you want? I want my children to be safe, to be loved, to grow up knowing their mother never abandoned them, that is all. Do you seek financial support from Mr. Bennett? No, Your Honor. I am able to provide for them myself. The judge looked at Marcus, at Elena, at the mountains of evidence stacked on her desk. I have seen many cases in 30 years on this bench. This is among the clearest. Primary physical and legal custody is awarded to Elena Matthews. Mr. Bennett, you will have supervised visitation only, pending completion of parenting courses and psychological evaluation. Visitation will be contingent on demonstrated genuine interest in your children's welfare. This court is adjourned. Elena felt something release in her chest. Not joy exactly. Not victory, just relief. Her children were safe. Legally, finally, safe. The babies came home on day 95, all 3 at once. A miracle the nurses said they rarely saw. Lily was 5 pounds. Sophia, 4.8. Noah, the fighter, 4.5. Daniel drove them home. The car had 3 rear-facing car seats installed. Professional grade, safe, everything carefully researched and chosen. Maria came along to help. Dr. Morrison took personal time to be there for the transition. The apartment looked different. While Elena had been at the final custody hearing, someone had decorated. Soft yellow walls in the nursery, 3 cribs, 3 changing stations. Everything they would need times 3. Who did this? Elena asked. Daniel looked embarrassed. I hope it is okay. I wanted it to be ready. Elena stood in the doorway of the nursery and cried. Not sad tears, not exactly happy ones either. Just overwhelmed, grateful. The kind of tears that come when you finally make it to shore after months of drowning. That first night was chaos. 3 babies, 3 different schedules. 3 different needs, all demanding attention at once. Elena was exhausted within an hour. Daniel stayed. He had cleared his schedule. Told his assistant he was unavailable for the next 72 hours. He knew how to change diapers now, how to warm bottles to the exact right temperature, how to burp babies and soothe them back to sleep. At 3 a.m., they sat on the couch together, each holding a baby. Sophia for Elena, Noah for Daniel, Lily sleeping peacefully in her crib. Thank you, Elena said quietly, for all of this, for everything. You do not need to thank me. I do, though. You did not have to do any of this. You could have just sent a check and called it even. Daniel looked down at Noah sleeping against his chest, so small still, but alive, growing stronger every day. When my marriage ended, he said slowly, when my wife took my daughter and I did not see her for 5 years, I used to dream about having a second chance, about being there for someone the way I was not there for them. Your grandmother gave me that chance by helping me rebuild, and now helping you, helping these 3. It feels like maybe I am finally repaying that debt. You do not owe anyone anything, Daniel. Maybe not, but I want to be here anyway, if you will let me. Elena looked at him, really looked. This man who had shown up with nothing to gain, who had stayed when it was hard, who held her son like he was precious, who asked for nothing except the chance to help. I would like that, she said. They sat together in the quiet apartment, two adults and three tiny humans. Not a family exactly, not yet, but something. The beginning of something. The first fragile threads of connection that might someday become strong enough to hold them all. 1 year later, Elena stood in front of a glass office building in Lower Manhattan. The sign above the entrance read, Eleanor Matthews Foundation, Legal Aid and Family Support. Inside, the space was bright and welcoming. Nothing intimidating. Nothing that would make a scared mother feel small or ashamed. Just comfortable chairs and patient people who understood that asking for help was the bravest thing someone could do. Thomas had helped her set it up. $50 million from the trust. Enough to help hundreds of families. Enough to make sure no mother faced what Elena had faced alone and without resources. The foundation's first client was Anna, 28 years old, divorced while 7 months pregnant, ex-husband refusing child support, threatening custody, the same pattern, the same cruelty. Elena sat across from her in the consultation room, held her hands while she cried. I do not have money for lawyers, Anna said. I do not know what to do. That is what we are here for, Elena replied. No one should face this alone. We are going to help you. Why? You do not know me. Because someone helped me when I needed it most. And because my grandmother believed that wealth should serve a purpose. This is that purpose. Later, after Anna left with a lawyer assigned and a plan in place, Elena stood at the window looking out at the city. Daniel came up beside her. They were married now, quietly. Small ceremony at City Hall. The babies had been there. Lily walking confidently. Noah still cautious. Sophia watching everything with wise eyes. You did good today, Daniel said. We did good. This is both of us. Your grandmother would be proud. Lena touched the jade bracelet on her wrist. She had found it finally, in a box of Eleanor's things that her mother had kept. She wore it every day now, a reminder, a connection. I hope so. I hope she sees this and knows her legacy did not end, that it is growing, that the protection she built is helping people she never met. Her phone buzzed, a message from Maria, who was watching the Triplets at home. Photo attached, 3 toddlers covered in spaghetti sauce. Happy chaos. Elena smiled. We should go home. In a minute. There is something I want to show you first. He led her down the hall to a small room at the back of the foundation. Inside was a wall of photographs. Women and children they had helped. Families rebuilt. Lives saved. And at the center, a single portrait. Eleanor Matthews. Young, smiling, holding baby Elena in a garden somewhere. Beneath it, a plaque. Simple. True. Eleanor Matthews, 1910 to 1995. Builder of fortresses, protector of the vulnerable. Her legacy continues in every life we save. Elena stood before her grandmother's portrait. The woman she barely remembered, but who had known her completely. Who had seen the future and built something to protect it. Who had understood that love without power was too easily destroyed. Thank you, Grandma, Elena whispered, for seeing, for knowing, for building something that lasted. Outside, the city moved on. Millions of lives, millions of stories. And in this small foundation, in this bright space, Eleanor Matthews' legacy lived on. Not in money, though there was plenty of that, but in protection, in the ability to say no when the world demanded yes, in the power to choose who you became when you had resources. Marcus Bennett lived in Seattle now. He saw his children twice a year, supervised visits that were awkward and sad. The Triplets called Daniel Papa. They knew Marcus only as someone who visited sometimes and then left again. He had sent the trust fund, $800,000 divided 3 ways, all he had left after legal fees and settlements. It sat in accounts Thomas managed, growing slowly. The only genuine thing Marcus had ever given his children. Vanessa Sterling had moved to London. Her reputation never recovered from the scandal. She worked for her father's company but would never run it. The voting shares Elena held made sure of that. Dr. Sarah Morrison had reconciled with her son. He was studying medicine now, following in her footsteps. They had dinner every Sunday, a relationship rebuilt 1 week at a time. And Elena had 3 beautiful children. A partner who showed up every day, a foundation helping people who needed it, and a grandmother's love reaching across decades to save her when she needed it most. She had not gotten revenge. Revenge was small and fleeting. She had gotten something better. Justice, purpose, a life that mattered. Because in the end, the greatest inheritance is not money. It is knowing what to do with it. It is using power to protect rather than destroy. It is building something that lasts beyond yourself. This is Eleanor's legacy. This is Elena's story. This is what second chances look like when you are brave enough to take them. And it is only the beginning.